I'm Kim.
I'm Brad.
We're 626 Ohana, California, and today we're going to talk about what some of the late-breaking news is in regards to the cruise industry and specifically Disney.
So please like, subscribe,
and follow along with our Ohana. And we will also be answering what Disney says is one of their most popular questions in cancellations.
Okay, let's go ahead and start out with masks.
No surprise. Yeah. Just like the parks, when you disembark the ship, you're out in public areas, you're going to wear them.
Yeah, and it's not going to be a big surprise, especially with everything going on.
Yeah, it's expected. So when are we going to return to cruising?
So right now what we've got from the CDC return to sail is...
pending.
So they have written a 40-page to-do list for the cruise lines, what they need to do to go back to cruising. Unfortunately, can't see it. So hopefully they have them in hand and are starting to work on them.
I feel bad because if somebody handed me a 40-page to-do list, I'd cry. That would be a really massive undertaking.
Yeah, and part of this is the CDC will not approve return to cruising with any rising cases of COVID-19.
So that kind of makes me question, is that just like port cities or the overall U.S.? Or what happens if there's one epicenter like California versus the rest of the United States?
Yeah, and I'm thinking they're leaving that vague on purpose. It gives them a little bit more flexibility of what they need to do.
A lot of this is vague, just to let you know.
They also have to have a 30-day written notice asking for conditional sailing certificate.
So after that to-do list, the CDC has to come on board the ship, inspect it, tell them what their capacity is going to be, and then let them... give them the conditional sailing certificate.
And that allows them to get the staff on board and start working back to cruise operations, but they have to do one other thing.
Test cruises is what that allows. And then those are usually just people that are non-paying guests that are on to see how operations work, make sure everything's safe, all the new protocols are being implemented correctly.
It gives them time to work out the bugs.
Yeah.
So you also have to have 60 days between the test and revenue cruises. So they have that period in between. So we're looking at a couple months.
Yeah, about 90 days from that 30-day written notice to test cruising. But it doesn't say, is that test the 60 days at the beginning of the test period when they get back into port? Or do they have to have multiple test cruises?
I'm sure they know. They're just not telling us.
Yeah. So it'll be lengthy.
Yeah. And all international travelers coming into the United States have to have a COVID-19 test.
No surprise, it's mandated by the U.S.
So now we're getting into the interesting part. Yesterday, February 4th, Canada has told us all that all Canadian ports are closed until February 28th, 2022. So that's over 1 year.
Wow, that is painful. There's so much that could happen in months and a year.
Yeah, and that's a lot. There's a lot going on with this, and we were waiting to report on it because we wanted to make sure we had everything in line. This is very fluid at the moment, what's going on.
Correct.
And Canada's Prime Minister of Transportation, I believe it is, does have the ability to rescind the order if conditions do approve, but right now we're looking over a year.
Right. And then there's something else just to throw in. The CDC also has put out the level 4 advisory for the cruise ships. So should there be what they're calling a threshold of cases, then they're going to make the ship return to the port of embarkation in the United States, and you have to leave from there. So, and then they might delay or make you quarantine or something like that. So you would have to incur any cost and any extra travel time.
So if you turn around after a day and come back, you're responsible for your own transportation, your own hotel. It's not the cruise line's fault.
Right. And then can you imagine paying for a 7-day Disney cruise and only really getting 1 day of it?
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah, no.
And so right now, as of now, Disney Cruise Line has not canceled any cruises out of Alaska yet. And no, they have one East Coast cruise, correct?
Yeah, in the fall they have like a Halloween on the High Seas that leaves from New Brunswick that's going to go down to Maine. So those cruises are all still there. So that's really, really interesting. The one thing we want to tell you is do not go, if you want to get a future cruise credit, do not go and cancel right now, because the 125% future cruise credit expires May 31st, 2022. Now, I'm sure as they get further out, they'll change those dates and give some more leniency.
Yeah, and as of right now, they are canceling some cruises that were earlier this year. Disney Cruise Line, those are more of the Caribbean.
April, yeah, into April.
So those ones have been canceled, but these will be the first ones to be really affecting the Alaskan cruise season, other than one that was a 9-day cruise out of Vancouver.
So that future cruise credit, if you were to cancel now and you wanted to go next summer, say June and July, August, where you may have had a cruise, that wouldn't cover you yet into that. So
Yeah.
I'm sure if they go ahead and cancel the Alaskan season, that they'll extend that date. So you may want to hold tight.
We were told by Disney Cruise Line to hold off.
Yeah. And then the other thing is they said that their most popular question is, like last year in 2020, if we canceled a cruise and took that 125% future cruise credit, if they cancel this year, do we get an additional 125% future cruise credit? And the answer is no, you only get one.
So with Disney Cruise Lines, we all know that the prices they're one of the few cruise lines that seem to always keep rising prices right now. And so they have not announced the next Alaskan cruise season yet.
Yeah, I did express my fear that if we prices keep going up and over 2 years keeping the money with them, that we may not be able to afford the same cabin just because they've been canceled.
Yeah, they keep going up in
They
price.
tried to reassure me it'd be okay, but I'm still have some concerns because we haven't seen prices.
Yeah, and they're also, again, they were saying, do not cancel, wait until Disney Cruise Line cancels you.
If you're going to get that future cruise credit and not take the money back.
Yeah. So what is the reaction going on in the cruise industry with this right now? Well, it's quite a bit.
Not good.
So let me read after Canada announced what they were saying, what the Alaskan Congressional Delegation said back in response to Canada today, February 5th. As the state with the most extensive shared border with Canada, the Alaskan delegation has worked in good faith to seek compromise over border crossings restrictions due to COVID-19, keeping in mind the health and safety of Alaskans and Canadians. Canada's announcement to ban all cruise sailings carrying 100 people or more traveling through Canadian waters without so much as a courtesy conversation with the Alaskan delegation is not only unexpected, it is unacceptable, and was certainly not a decision made with any consideration for Alaskans or our economy. We expect more from our Canadian allies, said the delegation. Upon hearing the announcement, we immediately reached out to the Canadian and American agencies to try to understand the rationale behind this decision, particularly the duration of the ban. We're exploring all potential avenues, including changing existing laws to ensure the cruise industry in Alaska resumes operations as soon as it's safe. We will fight to find a path forward.
I feel like that was like their mic drop.
And I think what we're getting at here is we have not seen cruise lines cancel Alaskan cruises so much.
No, Norwegian Cruise Line and Princess has canceled maybe their first 2 weeks worth of the
And I think that was
season.
accepted to meet the CDC requirements. It's just they weren't going to make them. But the majority of the Alaskan cruise season has not been canceled yet. And that's why it prompted us to call Disney to find out what's going on. And they are aware of it, but they didn't say anything. But it brings up an interesting conversation, what's going on with what the Alaskan delegation is. And the cruise line industry has its own spokesperson, and they're basically saying they are wanting now to seek changes to America's 135-year-old maritime law that states that U.S. or ships that are not flagged in the United States must stop at a foreign port, either departing or coming back or stopping at a foreign port. To be able to do these cruises, they cannot go from a U.S. city to U.S. city back to U.S. city.
Right, I think that's an important thing. There are so many people, we feel really bad for Alaskan communities, the Vancouver communities, all these people, and even Seattle, whose jobs have now been affected in economy and the tourism in those areas. It's just heartbreaking.
Yeah. And so this is something we've been speculating on for a while, and we've been talking about, and I've been speculating. I think we said it several times. I highly think that there may be a process in place with the cruise industry and everybody else, because they're not canceling everything. You think with this, they would go, okay, we're canceling everything.
I totally expected. And those cruises are off of the Disney Cruise Line website. You can't go and try to book them now, but they haven't been canceled.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if right now the cruise line industry is trying to ask for a temporary relief from that U.S. law so that they can operate out of Seattle. to Alaska or wherever they run their Eastern maritime cruises without going to Canada at all.
It's too bad the US and Canada couldn't work out something where maybe they require proof of vaccination to enter the country and a negative COVID test or something like that, and resume later in the season.
Yeah, we can still be hopeful that they do change it, but right now it probably doesn't look very hopeful. Unfortunately, we were kind of guessing the first part of the Alaskan cruise season was going to be canceled, just our guess on it.
Well, from all the rumblings and rumors, it seemed logical, and then when you step in and think about the CDC requirements to return to sail, it just made sense that first half of the season probably wasn't going to happen. And then a few weeks ago, you had that 2-day surprise cruise pop up, and that kind of went, maybe this could signal the beginning of the Alaskan season.
Yeah. So the moral of the story is right now, do not cancel your own cruise if you want the 125% cruise. It looks like Alaska's cruise season is done unless the U.S. government reacts and changes U.S. maritime law and stays out the 12 miles past Canadian waters.
That, and Brad and I were talking about, that might get a little rough because we've done the Pacific cruise from San Diego up to Vancouver, and that gets pretty gnarly.
Yeah, and they're pretty close to the coast, so it could get a little rough on those waters, so something to be aware of too if you're doing this.
Yeah, and then it's also, Brad and I was talking to the Disney Cruise Line representative, and she was still saying that when these cruises get canceled, you kind of, even if you've had a future cruise credit or not, you're still going to kind of be in line with everybody else. It's almost too bad that if people hadn't kept their money with Disney and kind of kept a little bit of loyalty with them,
they get a little bit earlier booking process, because unfortunately when they open that window, they have not opened the Alaskan window for 2022 as of yet.
And they say about February, March, they expect those itineraries to be released.
So be on the lookout for those.
But it would have been nice if they kind of had a window, like you've had a year or two worth of canceled cruises. Now, maybe thanks for being loyal, here's an open window. But I'm sure the, platinum and all that would have gone nuts.
So with that, I think it's time for us to say goodbye and
find your magic. Bye.
Bye, everybody.